From side government today, Madam Speaker, I think there's a clear problem in status quo in Western liberal democracies, especially in the United States of America. Right? The over-influence of corporate lobbying and the amount of money the corporations regularly pump into candidates' campaigns, right? That's a negative influence and skews the decision-making process that happens in these democratic countries, right? That is the essential problem that we see in status quo, where large companies like Shell are able to contribute large amounts of money to ensure that the energy plan of the US is shifted in their bias, Madam Speaker, and they get the access to drill those oil reserves, Madam Speaker, and the implicit pressure that they apply on candidates to ensure the kind of funding that they will get, Madam Speaker. When you saw the large banking corporations like Goldman Sachs shift their focus from funding the Obama campaign to funding the Romney campaign because Romney was more open towards their policies, Madam Speaker. When you have a few individuals, a few corporations and their profit motive running and skewing the decision-making process in these countries, that's essentially the problem, Madam Speaker. What is the model from side government today? Our model is clear. We ban corporate financing of political campaigns. We also ban the presence of super PACs or such political action committees which then contribute large amounts of money and are not accountable for it, Madam Speaker. We're okay with individual corporations which occur anyway and the regular cap that applies in these individual corporations, right? We don't think that there is a lack of funds in the individual corporations, and even if there is, Madam Speaker, even if there are a few harms coming from a lack of funds, that's a trade-off that you're willing to make on side government to ensure a better, more accountable democracy, Madam Speaker. So what is this influence in decision making that I'm talking about, right? The fact that these campaigns often, that these corporations donate large amounts of money to these campaigns, right? They explicitly or implicitly imply that those candidates which don't put into effect policies which favor those corporations won't be given the same amount of money the next time, Madam Speaker, right? That's essentially the problem that we see. That's exactly the problem when large corporations are able to mold national policy on things like energy, right? On things like economy, on things like natural resources, right? When they're able to shift the focus from what people on the ground actually want to what these corporations want, right? What is the problem with that? These corporations don't represent a majority of the people, right? They represent a very small minority of people who profit from skewing the national policy in their favor, Madam Speaker. That is essentially the problem. Their motive is only profit for themselves, right? It's not welfare, it's not to ensure sustainable development of the country, it's only to ensure that their profit is met, right? Sure, we might agree that there is transparency in status quo, that there is transparency in terms of accounting, clear accounts and all those things, right? What is still the problem, Madam Speaker, is that pressure still exists on the candidates despite the transparency, right? Despite us knowing that Goldman Sachs is contributing millions of dollars to the Romney campaign, he's still under that pressure to put in those policies, put in those actions which are favoring Goldman Sachs, right? Why is the argument of saying, oh, voters can always vote in another government not enough, right? Why is that pathetic of argument not enough in this case? I'll tell you why, right? Because given the bipartisan nature of politics in the United States, right, candidates don't really have a choice, right? Because Obama and the Democrats might be pandering to Shell and energy companies. Okay, they might vote them out. The Republicans are fighting for the banks and other corporations, right? So there's no real choice for the people, Madam Speaker. Both sets of parties, both major parties, given the bipartisan system in the country today, are affected equally by corporate pandering, Madam Speaker. They're equally affected by different groups of companies, but both are equally affected. So there's no real choice for the voters to enact that kind of change, right? There's no actual political ability for them to change governments and make a change, Madam Speaker, because both governments will pander to the exactly same corporate profit motives, right? And that's essentially what is pathetically harmful and abhorrent in Western liberal democracies, right? Before I move on, go.
So your problem is basically just because in US there's two political parties, but if there's more than two political parties, you go further.
That's the whole point of being open government, right? You can't just debate where you think it was strategic, right? That's why we set it up in Western liberal democracies. That's why we set it up in the United States of America, Madam Speaker. Because that's why it's essentially a problem. Because the check and balance doesn't exist like other countries like India, where you have a large number of political parties, and the political choice is pluralistic and not binary, Madam Speaker. That's essentially why open governments sometimes not that bad, right? Essentially why this is why we believe the kind of harms that they might talk about, right, won't exist, right? If they talk about voter apathy and how it's going to decrease voter apathy, right, that's essentially not true, right? If you look at empirical results, right, the fact that campaign finance by corporations has been around for almost 2 or 3 decades, right? Voter apathy there is nothing that has increased or decreased voter apathy, right? It's only that voters are becoming more apathetic, right? That's problem-solution mismatch. If you're going to say that it's going to reduce the kind of outreach these parties have, we believe that we don't think that's essentially a problem, given the kind of media infrastructure that exists, given the kind of acknowledgement that exists, and given the kind of elections that happen, both the local scale for their congressmen and their senators, given that they're the same parties, right? Even if we agree that these campaigns are affected to some extent by lack of funds, right? We're okay with that, Madam Speaker. That is a harm that we're willing to take because we believe in fair elections, Madam Speaker. If you weigh the benefits and the cost, right? What is the cost here, right? The cost is the skewing of democratic policies, which not in favor of people when governments fail to pander to the people and put in policies which the people might benefit from, Madam Speaker. When there is opposition from the banking corporations to ensure that the Glass-Steagall Act is repealed, when there is opposition saying that we don't want the kind of regulations that Wall Street wants, despite the people of America wanting it, Madam Speaker, that is the problem, Madam Speaker. When Shell wants to ensure that it gets mining rights in Alaska, Madam Speaker, when it wants to tap all the possible oil resources in the US despite public opposition in Alaska, right? That's essentially the problem in status quo, right? It skews the democratic policy making. What is the benefit that we get, right? What is the, okay, we might accept to a certain degree, it might reduce the large number of campaigns, the large number of the TV ads, right? The hours of TV coverage with these candidates by to skew against each other, right? We don't think about that's necessary in any democracy, Madam Speaker. We don't see the incremental benefit from having those large and extremely large campaigns, Madam Speaker. We don't think it does anything to improve voter apathy. We don't think that it does anything to improve the quality of elections, right? The only thing it does is force these candidates to implicitly be pressurized by these things, right? It's bullshit to say that, okay, fine, there are accounts available publicly and people can access them. Sure, there are, right? But the fact that even if there is no explicit pressure from these corporations, right? There is a reason why these corporates are funding these parties, right? It's not like they want better election, Madam Speaker. If you look at the profit motive, right? Why would a company invest in anything? Because they expect returns, right? The reason why they would invest billions of dollars in anything, right? Is because they want a return on their investment. That is essentially the clear motive for these corporations, Madam Speaker. Return on their investment in terms of political decision making. They aren't charitable organizations that put in money because they want better elections for the country, right? That is the reason why they fund them, right? It's on opposition's burden to show the incremental benefit or the benefit coming from these corporations which donate to people, right? We believe it's much better to have individuals donating, Madam Speaker, because individuals don't have that collective profit motive, Madam Speaker, because individuals are inherently different. Why? Because individuals then would look up or want the government to protect their individual freedoms, right? Not at the cost of the country's belief, right? We believe individuals in a majority in any democracy are the ones who lead the kind of policy that happens in place, because that's what the people want, right? With corporations, right, individuals no longer like the difference with corporations don't donate in terms of having policies which favor the people or which might be good for the majority of the people, but which is only good for a small minority, the top 1% of America, right? That's essentially what we don't want. The influence, the power and control of money in elections, right? That's why we believe we're extremely proud of the program.
Opposition, I would obviously agree that companies see this funding campaigns as a form of investment, but we would like to just defend these people. We would like to say that they're also the part of society that have the fundamental right to defend their interests because they're part of society as well. We're trying to say that this proposal proposed by the government of the House is undemocratic and will just hamper the society's interests in the end economically. But for that, let me just give several responses to the case given by the Prime Minister. First of all, in his setup, he said that he is going to allow individuals to fund these campaigns. And what if the owners of the companies fund the campaign anyway? That will lead to whatever harm he has explained anyway, right? Proven that his model has a fundamental flaw. Second of all, I think it's a lie when he tried to portray us these companies just dominating this whole decision making in the political process, because we need to understand the situation here. We're talking about exactly of the government, the United States of America, a country where we have our constitution standing by, defended by our legislature, defended by the society. Exactly in the status quo, society already has the power to balance everything outright in terms of how we have limits in constitution, how we have, how we won't ever tolerate self-serving policies that are just meant to benefit the companies will never ever pass inside our legislation, right? And I don't think there's any harm in when you're talking about companies like, for example, Shell trying to perhaps get a lot of contract to make oil drills in the company. We have environmental standards already anyway. If the society is against drilling oil in the country, that will not be allowed in the country. It's just due to the fact that we are allowing oil drilling in our country, that this Shell is trying to use their resources to get influence to make more money, and nothing is wrong with that, because companies are competing equally. They're allowed to use their resources anyway, right? And I think it's a lie when he says that society has no option because we have two parties, then these two parties are funded by, well, different companies for the same interest, like for example, oil drilling, the society have no choice but to accept oil drilling, because we need to understand the situation here. We're talking about a democratic country when the society is controlling the government. If you're not happy with the government's policy, talk to your senator. They're going to vote according to your interests, and actually they're duty bound to do that. You can sue your senator if that person is not representing your interests. You can sue the government, you can do referendum, you can do whatever to go against the government. You can do demonstrations. I mean, look, the situation is that these politicians, they're fighting for votes, right? If the society is then demanding, say, no oil drilling is allowed in the country, one party will eventually, in the end, try to buy this majority of the society. That will guarantee their winning. I mean, these political parties, they won't care if these several companies will not fund their campaigns again in the future, because they get this guarantee that they will win the election because the majority of society is what they're defending. Yes, sir.
Rather than just telling us is their political right, show us why the political right of a few minorities should be able to influence the policy which affect the
Oh my
majority.
God, sir, are you trying to say that in democratic countries, minority have no right whatsoever? Are you trying to say that? It doesn't make sense. I think in the right concept of democracy, minorities should be able to use whatever power they have to actually get their interests represented. Democracy is not just about tyranny of majorities. It's about doing the best while also accommodating the minority, and I'm going to show that balance in my presentation. Now going to my argument, how we think these corporations have the fundamental right to use their resources to protect their own interests, right? Exactly, I'm not trying to say that they can do whatever they want. What I'm trying to say is just they have the right to defend what's good for them, right? That's what all people want, right? Exactly, because we're talking about a society that's controlled by the people. I mean, people are controlled with their own emotion, on ego that what they want to defend. I mean, we need to see the political arena in the country currently, because politicians are submitting to the public. Actually, currently the public has overwhelming power over the decision making. And in politics, how we have things like labor union, how we have environmental policies, how perhaps some companies cannot build things or whatever near the neighborhood housing area because society is against it. What I'm trying to say that is that society currently have overwhelming power, and businesses are going to be cornered if you don't allow them any power at all, right? Because we're talking about, we're talking about a situation where we are currently enacting laws levying higher taxes for companies, higher salary, whatever that's for the society, and actually not benefiting the company, actually disadvantaging the companies, right? Yeah, see the companies, they are hated in the company, as portrayed by the open government. I think they hate the company so much. They think that they are just tyrants currently just trying to oppress the society, but they fail to see the idea that our society is actually, that business is actually an important part of the society. It's just unfair, the fact that they've been contributing so much to the economy, the fact that they give us employment, the fact that if we don't have businesses in our country, that means our market will just be flooded by things from outside the countries that will hamper the economy. It's just unfair to say that they have no say towards the political decisions. I mean, what I'm trying to say is just, see, they are exactly the minor part of society, probably only 1% of society. Why do these people should have no say, should have no guard defense whatsoever towards what the majority want to them, right? I mean, what will happen if we just allow this proposal from government side of the house is that balance in the society will be out and we have trouble for society. Exactly. Why? Because you see, society is not rational. They're demanding things that are just good for them. For example, perhaps society in Greece, they're not even agreeing to this idea of austerity, while the country really need that austerity. The fact that the country will go bankrupt if they don't go with this austerity, but they're just still demonstrating against that. What will happen is that society will just depend on what's good for them and not really care about, say, long-term impact of the country, long-term economic impact. What I'm trying to say is that businesses is very, very important for the country. It provides, actually, that's the pillar of the economy of the country. So these businesses should have some defenses to make sure they still exist society to make sure that they still protect the interests of the society. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.